Now we're going to talk to you about how to actually play the cymbals. I mean, you heard me do some crashes in that last video, but here I'm going to describe what to do when you're actually playing them. There's a lot of different ways to play cymbals. I mean, if you ask 100 professional cymbal players how they play cymbals, you probably get about 80 different answers, or at least varieties of how to do it. So I'm going to show you how I do it, which is what I've learned from I've studied cymbal playing with a couple different people, actually a few different ones from some differing backgrounds. So for kind of general crashes, when you're playing, medium to loud, or like just not really loud, not really soft, what you want is the cymbals to be at an angle to each other. So a little bit of angle like that, a lot of angle, so that when they hit, they don't all hit at the same time. Then you can either get an air pocket or it can kind of clunk, something like that. And so the louder you play, the more angle you're going to want. So really loud, a lot of angle. The other factor, and of course I'm talking about angle between the cymbals, right there. A lot of angle, little angle. There's also this angle, which doesn't have as much of an effect. It does have a little bit of effect. The other thing you want to be aware of is you need to have a little bit of offset on the cymbals. If they all come together here, they're perfectly even. Again, you're not going to get a good sound because you want the plates to vibrate as much as possible. So you need a little bit of an offset. You can see, get a little closer, a little bit of offset there. And so again, the principle behind this is that you get the more, the louder it is, the more offset you get. So if you're loud, you get more offset, more angle to get the best crash sound. If you're playing really soft, you get very little offset, and the very softest, you don't really have any angle between the cymbals because you want one sound rather than two. Now this angle, so they're actually technically going to hit at different times for the loudest crashes, but it's so fast that you don't really hear it. It shouldn't sound like you're hitting them twice. So like you don't want to do this, right? That's like a crash. You don't want that. You want, so it sounds like one sound, but they're the technique are hitting it at slightly different times. So for those kind of mediums, you're not going to have a lot of angle, not a lot of offset. You kind of want to let this cymbal kind of fall into the other one. You have to guide it because gravity is going to take it straight down for this sort of crash. You don't want to force it into the cymbal, and then you want to bring it back. So that's kind of your marching crashes. Again, I notice there's really not a lot of angle, but there's still offset, so that helps that. Now, if you're wanting to get louder crashes, you gotta pull it back like this and get more angle. And the other thing is, notice I generally will tilt them a little bit more for those really big crashes. And the reason I do that is because you want gravity to take the cymbal down. You don't want to have to force it into the cymbal. You're not going to get as good a sound that way. Let me pause for a second. All right, sorry about that. I didn't want the phone ringing for longer. So we were talking about using gravity, and so when I have my students do this, of course, we're in person, so it's a little bit easier to demonstrate this and have you practice it. But you want to let gravity take the cymbal down, just like you were dropping it down like that, but with your arm. So you just kind of let it go, but you're not actually letting the cymbal go. And then you're dropping it right onto the other cymbal. And we're gonna practice. I'm gonna show you what I would do practicing this. Is I'm gonna let it just drop onto this other cymbal. All right, so it's not a great crash, right? But this is kind of an exercise going towards getting good crashes. And then we'll do that same thing, and then I'll just bring it up. So I'm letting gravity take it down, and I'm pulling it back as soon as it hits. So that's the sort of thing you want to do. Also, your weak hand, so my left hand here, doesn't do a lot. It's mostly the dominant hand, the right hand coming down. The left hand can come up and meet the other cymbal. I actually had a teacher that I do this drop down. I had a teacher that he would angle it. First of all, he'd do the offset angle like this, but he would do mostly the bottom cymbal. And he sounded great. It was just a different technique, and so I play a little differently than either one of them. I play mostly coming down here. I'm doing a video. You're welcome.
For finding my room.
Yeah, you're welcome. So.
I know this is not my room.
Distractions. Yeah, so there's different ways. There's also, like, I think a lot of people will teach to do this kind of upward serve motion. It's not like nobody does that, but that's just not the way I play. And I think, I love playing cymbals, and I think this way you really get a good sound out of the cymbals as long as you're not bashing them together. I think that's why people do this kind of that upward motion, because it helps to not get that bashing it, but you can get it if you practice it. Pulling the cymbals apart once you've hit them. And then of course, most of the time you're not going to be playing flat like this, so you're going to be a little bit of an angle, but still, it's like this, and you see how it's dropping straight down. All right, so those are like big solo crashes. You can really let it rip. So I'm going to show you these other. This is a pair that I didn't show in the previous video, the Sabians. These are one of also I've used a lot over the years. These are 19s as well. So again, it's that angle and offset. And you know what? I totally forgot to talk about how to hold the cymbals. That's pretty important. And so what you want to do, maybe I'll bring this camera a little bit closer so you can see the hands a little better. So you have a strap like this, and you see they're tied off in the middle. There's different ways of doing that, or different kinds of straps. That's a real basic strap there. This one has a little kind of a leather disc in there as well. So you have the strap like this, and you put your hand there, and I'm putting this right on that middle segment of my finger, right there, against the strap and the bell. So ideally, you'll have as little as possible touching the cymbal. So you should be able to do it with just maybe one finger. If you can see that, there's just a one finger there. If you have a couple fingers, that's not a big deal. What you don't want is that whole hand there, and you notice the strap sometimes will touch that. That's just going to muffle the cymbal. And the thumb as well, you don't want it like way up on there, but just a little bit touching. And I'm putting my finger way in there, and as tight as I can, and then I'm gripping with those back fingers. So see, my back fingers are really gripping that cymbal. And then I have a lot of control over that angle and offset that we've been talking about. Because if you're loose like this, like you don't have that control, or you're having to press on the cymbal, which you're muffling it, and you don't want to do that. So really tight. Again, kind of give you a closer look of how my hand is and where that strap is under there. And exactly the same thing with the other hand. In my case, left hand. Again, if you're a lefty, you just do this exactly opposite. The grip is the same, so that doesn't matter. So that's our cymbal grip, and again, you'll have a lot of control over that angle. when you're playing that way. Now let's talk a little bit about really soft crashes. I'll get this up a little bit more so you can see me. Maybe back a little bit. I have no assistant doing my video work for me. How's that? That looks pretty good. Really soft crashes are very difficult to play to get them consistently. Now, if you've noticed, on these cymbals, I've got a little mark there, a little dot on one of them, and then a line with a dot there. So what that is I found a spot on the cymbals where they all line up. Because if you put different spots, you can see, I'll see if I can get that, you can see they're not all lined up. This spot, they're all lined up, and that's the way around the entire cymbal. Because they're not completely flat. So that's the spot I'm aiming for with soft crashes. Let me just come a little closer here. So, and here I'm trying to just play them all at the same time. So that's your soft crashes, and something you can do if you have some time before your first soft crash. I get it here. See if you can see that, and I get one cymbal against my stomach. Try to be as quiet as you can, getting the other one in there. I did not do a good job that time, and then I put them together. So they're like here against my stomach, and then I put them together, and then they're together. And so right before I hit that first crash, I bring them apart. Right, so I probably don't need to bring them apart that much, just kind of a little bit and crash. And if you have another time, you put them together. And that way you know exactly where those cymbals are lined up. You can wait for your moment. You can wait the conductor, pick up, and crash. Because otherwise, if you're like sitting there waiting and you're like, the cymbals can be wobbling, you could try to be still, and then you do a crash like that. They're too far apart. They're not even, so you end up getting two sounds. So that's really difficult to get consistent soft crashes. And I usually do my soft crashes more vertical, as you can see. The bigger ones down here. But you can do pretty big ones here. It's just a little more uncomfortable. You can do really big ones down here. That's much easier, but again, that kind of 45-degree angle or so, at least the 45 degrees of the cymbals to the ground rather than the angle of the cymbals to each other. Again, there's those two different angles that we talk about. So that's your basic cymbal technique. And unfortunately, you guys don't own cymbals, so you can't practice it. But hopefully when we get back to school, you can practice them. I think the ones at school are fairly thick, so they're a little bit harder to play. These are fairly thin, so they're just really easy to play. And let's see, some other things. Oh, sometimes these soft crashes, well, I was showing you that you want a really clean rhythm. So they hit together and you hear the one sound. There's something else that you can almost let them sizzle together. And one of the guys, former guys in Seattle Symphony, just retired in the middle of all this virus stuff. He would call them smushy crashes. So you see, I'm kind of like letting him buzz just slightly. And I've used those a lot. Sometimes those like soft crashes that just sounds really great. You can do a little louder too. So again, I'm just letting them sizzle together just a little bit. You can also do cymbal scrapes. There's a couple of different ways. You don't do them a lot in band, but or orchestra, but you do sometimes. One way to do it is I take the edge of one cymbal right next to the bell here, and I just slide it. Kind of let gravity take that one down. You can also do kind of on the inside face. That's a little different sound. or on the edge for a little bit. Different ways to do that. Probably the most common way I do it is just like this. I think I've seen people do this too. Or you could drag this down. Anyway, some kind of cool effects that you can do with crash cymbals. But again, just to kind of review, I'm just going to do it with these different cymbals just for some variety. Move these out of the way for a second. So, you want to use gravity when the cymbal will come down, just letting it, just like you're dropping it, but you're not letting go of that strap. And you want that, the louder it is, the more angle, the more offset. Oh, here, I was going to show you these. This is a more common way of marking cymbals, is little arrows, and I put that line there just so I could line them up. Yeah, so you want the angle offset. That, again, that line, that markup is for the soft crashes because you want them lined up perfectly for the soft ones. And yeah, letting gravity, angle, offset. That bottom cymbal can come up and meet a little bit. Now your timekeeping crashes, again, a little review, where there's not much angle and offset because they're not really big and loud. They're going to be more like mezzo forte, that sort of thing. But even there you can see when I got softer, I don't know how much you can hear on the video, but when I got softer, a little bit less angle, definitely less motion. Those soft crashes, you want to line them up all together like that. So you just get that one sound. Yeah, so that's cymbal playing. I love playing cymbals, especially when you got a good part, some big moments. Usually we're at the climax of things. Sometimes you play really fast. So here you'd be more of like that timekeeping crashes, like for a march. Let's see, it was and that's from a piece of famous cymbal part, the Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, that is on like every professional orchestral audition. You have that because it's fast and you got to get them consistent. You know, I haven't actually played that in a while, so mine were not as consistent as I'd like. But so there you get the timekeeping crashes. You keep everything short. Also, something that you saw me doing, which I need to explain a little bit, is muffling. So sometimes you need to muffle them really, really short. And notice when I come in, I'm coming in where my stomach is. If you do it up by your chest, you're gonna hit your ribs, and there's not as much padding up there, so that you can get bruises if you do it up there. So just down there. Also, if you ever play in marching band, it's a completely different way of playing cymbals. When I had to coach a drum line for the first time, and I had to actually go and study the different ways of playing cymbals, even though I know a lot about orchestral cymbals. So it's just a completely different way of playing, but it's still kind of fun. The people that are really serious about it, they do all sorts of fun visuals and that sort of thing. So that's cymbal playing. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else I forgot. I can always cover it in a video sometime later. So there you go, cymbal playing. And I think probably next thing I'll do will be to talk about bass drum technique and the different mallets and a lot of different things like that. So anyway, that's it for now.